So these meetings are recorded for the purposes of archiving and also to allow people that miss meetings to be able to get caught up. I'll go through the agenda real quick, and if you have anything that you need to add, that we need to add to the agenda, we can do so. And just as you see at the bottom, when we finish this meeting, there is a candidate interest forum to follow if anybody's on this call and is interested in running for one of the JCTA positions and would like some more information about what that would entail, etc. We will stop recording and kind of have a meeting after the meeting conversation. Since we don't have, we're not in buildings anymore, we can't just, all go off to a room and talk about things that we might want to talk about outside of our meetings. So we just decided to do it at the end of this call. And hopefully we'll have some more people joining us that might be coming because of the candidate interest piece of it. So we'll see how that goes. Like I said, there's really only two key items on the agenda: student assignment and JCTA elections. And that's what the agenda looks like. Does anybody want to add anything before we move forward? I'll explain what all those notes are as we go through them. But first, let's go around and just introduce ourselves. We have a couple people that are newer that we'd like to hear from you guys a little bit about you, and just a chance to say hello and introduce ourselves as well. So, Yvonne, would you like to go first and just introduce yourself?
Wait until I'm chugging water.
Sorry,
she did that on purpose. Hi, I'm Yvonne Rivera. I teach Spanish to little people at Wilder Elementary. I'm one of the co-founders of JCPS Leads, and I'm in Save Our Schools Kentucky and Dear JCPS, and I'm a rep in my building at for JCPA, and I'll be quiet now.
Randy?
I'm Randy Week. I teach U.S. history at Manual High School, and for the past 7 years or so, I've been trying to fight a battle to save the teacher's pension, which will affect some 130,000 active and retired teachers. It has been underfunded and riddled with secret investments for the past 15 years, and I've had devil of a time trying to get my own teacher association to join in this fight. It has mostly been, I'm speaking of JCTA, mostly been complicit in the lack of transparency and willing to sustain the underfunding of the pension for the past 15 years, which has brought the funding level down to something like 35 to 40%.
Greg. Thanks, Randy.
Greg Titchener. I'm a ECE teacher at Waller Williams Rental School, where I've got 5th and 6th grade EBD students this year. We finally have enough certified staff that I'm working on being connected as the second building rep for Waller Williams, and just threw my name in the hat for an elementary 2 position with JCTA, and I'll leave it there.
Awesome. Dante. Hey.
Sorry about that. Hey, I'm Shantae Berg. I am actually a former JCPS teacher. I just resigned from ECE teaching after 8 years in March of last year. So I'm still transitioning into my new position as a preschool disabilities consultant with Ohio Valley Educational Cooperative. And we'll be reopening Head Start programs across Jefferson County. So I guess you could say I'm here because before I left JCPS, I was still a JCTA PR and had been elected KEA delegate. And I still have a lot of teacher friends that are in the trenches, and, you know, by the time they clock out for the day, they are just overwhelmed and done. So considering, you know, my new position and I don't have as much stress to deal with anymore, I'm here as an advocate for them and for community organizing. And the National Day of Action, I just wanted to confirm, is that the January 12th Demand Safe Schools National Day of Resistance?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Shantae. K.A. Owens, I'm just going in screen order so I don't miss anybody.
I'm K.A. Owens. I'm on the board of directors of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. I'm not a teacher, but I'm the son of a teacher, and I was raised around a lot of school teachers. So I went to a mixture. I went to 6 years of Catholic school and 6 years of public school, and graduated from a public high school. So that's me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, K.A. Chris Harmer. If you're talking, you're muted. I can't see if your lips are moving.
Chris Harmer, member of the Kentucky Alliance Ed Committee for a long time and chair of the Alliance Reclaim Our Schools here in Louisville, a coalition of organizations involved in education work.
Tracy, hello.
Hey, Tracy Wright. I am a 5th grade teacher at Blake. This is my 22nd year, and I have put in I'm retiring March 1st. But I have served as a building PR rep. I've been on the board of directors with JCTA. And Randy, I voted for you when you ran for president of JCTA.
Thank you. You and
Yes.
about 3 other people.
All right, but I did. I voted for you. I like what you were saying, and I thought it was time to take a bite out of it, you know?
Thank you.
But that's it. I'm just here. I think I'm here on my way out. And I'm doing a lot of thinking because, you know, you get a lot of teacher guilt from even some of my good friends who are teachers and who ask, you know, you don't like teaching, you're going to leave. And it's not that, but that push of asking us, what is your why for teaching? And I have that magnet on my refrigerator. And that's a good thing to have teachers think about. But when you're not asking me, why am I teaching? That means you're not support. I feel like my why for teaching is not being supported.
Mhm.
You know, so, I think there's a two-way street to this, asking teachers why they're in it. And then not joining that with, and how can we support you in upholding your why? And as you remember your why, how can we support you to sustain your why? So, Ms. Berg, I agree with you totally, that this leaving exhausted, thinking about it 24/7 is enough. You know, I've kind of had enough personally, and that's it. And then Gay invited me to come, and I said, sure.
And you've been to a couple of people's agendas meetings, or
Yes, ma'am, I have.
when we met in person, so
Mhm.
this is the virtual version,
Yeah, right.
COVID version.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy.
Kimberly
Thank
Mucker
you.
Johnson. Dr. Johnson.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Mucker Johnson. I am a 7th grade teacher at Westport Middle School, and this is my 19th year of teaching, or being an educator.
Welcome. And Kenyatta. I see you're having a little bit of trouble connecting, but you're back.
I am, good old T-Mobile service. I I'm Kenyatta Dean Bacon. I'm a special education teacher at Newburgh Middle School.
Awesome. I think that's everybody. I'm Gay Adelman. I am one of the co-founders of Dear JCPS and Save Our Schools Kentucky. I am a parent of a graduate from the Academy at Shawnee and a taxpayer and a concerned voter. Oh, and I'm also on the board of the Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression. And as others join, I'll let them in and then we'll pause and do more introductions if appropriate. So on the agenda, after the introductions, we have the student assignment plan. We are doing community input sessions each week. The purpose of having student assignment on the agenda is to open it up for new comments and feedback, not to rehash things that we've already discussed and agreed on, but hoping that people who need a place to be heard, if they have concerns about student assignment, know that they can come to our meetings that are open and voice their concerns, and we will make a compilation video of their comments and put them on a web page somewhere where board members can have access to them, the community can have access to them, because we're still not able to speak at JCPS board meetings, and they're expected to vote on this proposal at the January 19th board meeting. So that's just a couple of weeks away now. So this meeting and the next two meetings are really intended, and the last two meetings were intended to be standing meeting times so that people can come and add to the comments that we've already gathered. We've expressed to the superintendent that for the most part, we support the proposed changes. Our concerns are that they don't go far enough. And so we don't have any intention of preventing the passage of the proposed changes because we know that they're urgent, and we know that any delays could add another school year to the implementation and the building of new schools that is critical to creating a more equitable student assignment plan. But we also know that it's just inching towards equity. It's not even equal, much less equitable. And so we have identified some things that we have talked about in our meetings to continue to put pressure on the board to make it more equitable, including flipping the script, create programs funding that make the schools more compelling so that it entices more people to transport their students into the West Louisville schools, and have families that are outside of West Louisville, and especially families that have greater privilege to carry more of the weight in order to achieve this equity. The second thing I have on the agenda is banning the box. Like I explained in a previous meeting, that's just a colloquialism to help people understand why it's important that we not have families who live in the West End should not have to complete should not have to meet application minimums just to complete a transfer request to attend a school close to home. Latasha Harrison and I presented that to Dr. Polio the last time we met with him, and he liked that idea. He's pondering it. So it would only apply to families in the West End, and that goes along with dual resides. We're talking about dual resides for West End families, but why not also tell East and South End families that you can also choose the West End school if they would like to do so, so that they also have a dual reside. We want a plan to continue to repair harms that have been done. We want a resolution in support of a Black agenda. That was part of the EARN demands that we had that were correlated to the tax increase. Student assignment was E and resolution is R. We also want guardrails in place to mitigate any unintended consequences and slippery slopes and backsliding that might occur from the student assignment plan. And we want an ongoing seat at the table. We don't want to have to wait until they've proposed something that we have to fight to make it better or derail it or what have you. Let's be part of that conversation while it's being formulated. And like I mentioned, we have ways to collect community feedback. One is simply add to these comments during these meetings. So I'll pause and ask, I'll go around the room and ask if anyone has anything they want to add that they haven't had a chance to add at previous meetings. And then just remind people that there are other ways as well. You can make your own video and email it to moderator@dearjcps.com. And we have also asked the district to make effort to collect community feedback in some other way. And we've been exchanging text messages with Renee Murphy regarding that. So I'm going to stop and ask if anyone wants to add to, anyone that feels that there's something missing from that really short abbreviated list that we want to make sure does not get left out, or anything that we haven't discussed at all.
Gay, on the resolution in support of a black agenda, is there actually a finished document for that at this point from the Alliance?
No, and I will talk more about that in bullet item number 3.
Thanks.
You betcha. Tracy, we haven't heard from you regarding student assignment. Are you familiar with the proposed changes, and what are your thoughts?
I will be honest, I'm not familiar with what the changes are.
Okay.
And when you were saying the box, the box, were you saying that if students who are in the West End wanted to go to a school closer to their home, they shouldn't have to fill out any additional information? Is that what you mean?
They should be able to apply to attend a school close to home without having to meet minimum thresholds. There's a universal rule across the district that if you want to apply to transfer to another school, you have to have a 2.5 grade point average. You can't have behavior or attendance records on your record. So what we are suggesting is to remove that barrier for families who live in West Louisville, because it's possible that they have attendance issues because they missed the bus and their school is too far for their parents to take them. And so we are punishing them for problems that we have created, and it's not right to do so. It's a barrier for them to even apply. It's still the principal's discretion until the dual resides program is implemented fully. It would still be the principal's discretion as to whether or not to accept that transfer, but right now they can't even apply, and I think that's harmful.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking. Shantae, do you have any thoughts on student assignment that you want to make sure get included in this list?
No, I think you covered everything as far as, as far as I know where we are now.
That's great. It's been, when we first started doing these slide presentations, they carried on to 3 slides, and it has been a challenge to kind of roll it up into smaller bite-sized pieces that are digestible for folks. I see something is in the chat, but I don't know how to get to it. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say Danita showed up if she wanted to introduce herself. And then
Thank you, Greg. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danita.
Hey, how you doing?
Excellent. How are you?
Pretty good. I'm Danita Wright, and I work with the Coalition for West Louisville Neighborhood Association.
Excellent, excellent. And you've been former board chair of the Kentucky Alliance. That's how I met you.
Yes.
And do you have any thoughts on student assignment before we move on to the JCTA election item on the agenda?
No. Go ahead.
All right. Anything else on student assignment before we move on? Because
I know we were trying to keep it compact, but program funding and making schools compelling, I think we need to have our short list of what that entails. I know we're trying to, that's a lot to squeeze into one line, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, and it's easy for everyone as many people as there are in the room will have that many ideas as to what that actually means. So it's good to get that in writing, no question. All right, so with that being the case, I'm going to move on to JCTA elections. And there may be some people on this call. I know Greg has already spilled the beans and told us that he is running. I think there may be a few other people on the call who are either running or considering running for either an executive position or a regional slot. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, but for those who joined late, at the end of this call, we're going to stop recording and go offline and have a candidate interest forum meeting so that people who may be just considering it or wanting to ask questions can speak more candidly and learn a little bit more about what our organization can do to support them. So if there is someone on the call who's not sure if they want to convey their interest just yet, that's fine. Don't feel pressured. If you want to, though, and are ready to start getting support from fellow members, then by all means, please do. I know Kenyatta's on the call, and we all know that she's running in the runoff for BSK, so that's not going to be a secret. So we'll talk about that too. But I just want to make sure that people feel comfortable. And if you want to message me privately to tell me that you're thinking about running or something without necessarily telling the group, that's fine too. We want to be able to make this an informative space so that people know what's going on and why these elections are so important and what would be involved and that type of thing. So I'm going to kick it off by just explaining what some of these bullets that I've written in here are. JCTA is obviously the teachers union. It's the largest teachers union in the state, and I have referred to it as probably the most powerful union in the state as a result of the strength that teachers yield right now, especially. And so we as citizens and community members and taxpayers have some stake in the game, even if we're not members. And just like we hold LMPD and the FOP accountable when its members are doing things that harm our citizens, our residents, its members, or are not prudent with our tax dollars, you know, we have a right even as outsiders to express our concerns and our frustrations. And so there was recently a petition started asking Brent McKim to consider stepping aside. And I noticed out on social media, some of the commentary seemed to imply that only members should be weighing in on this, and we needed to stay in our lane kind of thing. And so I just want to explain why I don't think it's right that we should stay in our lane. I wrote use platform 4, and then I obviously didn't finish that thought, so let me try to do that. Like I mentioned, it's a large, powerful entity, and they have a microphone that citizens and grassroots organizations and even individual members don't have. And so we the community, the people, want to make sure, this is the People's Agenda meeting, we the people want to make sure that voices of our most marginalized community members are heard. So this platform needs to be used for that. And there have been cases where grassroots organizations have tried to have a seat at the table, and JCTA has managed to cut in line, essentially, and usurp the individuals who are most impacted, and groups who represent the most impacted from having access to that seat at the table. And the tax increase and the no tax hike group is one example. But also they were able to block an email that I sent recently. So these are the types of things that they overplay their hands sometimes, and that can be harmful to democracy. So known for being kind of frank about all that. My New Year's resolution is to be nice, so I hope I said all those things in a nice way. But it's still factual, and it's not right. So this is a campaign that's about policy and not personalities. Sorry. So we want to keep, it's not about Brent McKim or anyone else necessarily as a person. I'm sure that they're great people, but we've seen policies change that have, such as the removal of term limits, that have usurped democracy within the JCTA organization. And I
What
have,
the heck? What the heck is that,
I'm
girl?
sorry, my phone was ringing and it rings through when my computer's on. And it's really annoying, and I don't know how to make it not do that. But even though I declined the call, it still had to keep ringing my computer number for some reason. So anyway, sorry about that. It's over now, thank goodness. We want to focus on the policies, and like I mentioned, term limits is one. The BSK elections that were held recently had a lot of anomalies about it, and you know, when we look at how elections are being done electronically, and the people that are in power are the ones that ultimately control all the gears and levers around tabulation of votes. It's kind of concerning. The members have asked for paper ballots, and they were told that they can't have that this election cycle. So we have to trust an electronic vote tabulation system. And so there needs to be more transparency and reliable outcomes. And so I guess I'm kind of jumping on down.
Would you mind giving me the rundown on how we ended up with those two BSK results from leadership's words? Kenyatta can speak to that
Explain what you
better.
mean. The two results, what do you mean?
Like originally it was reported that Rashad had won the popular vote, and then they somehow recounted electronic ballots to have Kenyatta the winner. I'm just confused. And I'd like to hear from Kenyatta or you or somebody that knows the official stance was on that. How does that even happen? I'm confused.
Kenyatta or Yvonne, would you like to weigh in? Did we lose Yvonne? Oh, there she is. Sorry.
I will if Kenyatta does not want to.
Oh, Kenyatta just got she's having some internet issues, so I see her coming back in right now. Let's give her a second.
Sure.
Kenyatta, can you hear us?
Yeah, my apologies, you guys. I'm trying to do 100,000 things, but I really feel it's important for me to participate in the conversation today. So please forgive me for the tapping in and out all the time. I'm trying to work with these earbuds.
I'm glad
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I heard Greg had a question about the election results and why there was a discrepancy between the numbers. Without to try to say it, it's kind of hard to explain because I don't necessarily believe that an apostrophe E in someone's name could totally throw off the numbers the way that they did. But basically that was the rendition that they were told to us, that once one of the write-ins had an apostrophe E in their name and it threw off the tabulation. Thank you so much.
New man, yeah, no kidding, awesome.
Thank you. But there is a full page and a half write-up by Brent in the December 16th action that went over line by line every explanation that we had ever been given as far as why the numbers were messed up and the rationale for the needing of a runoff at this point.
Is the letter from
So-
Brent accurate and complete according to what you experienced?
The letter, so every time we emailed and asked a question, we were given a response from Brent that was CC'd in by everybody else. Well, along with that, I believe that it's like they kept every single response and tacked it into a full out explanation. So it's the same explanation that we were given throughout the process when I was
Just
asking
stitched
questions.
together.
Yes.
So it's accurate, there's no key points missing?
No, well, I mean, to be honest, when I read it, it just sounded like more of the same. It was all the same language, like they're sticking to the script. That was the script, and that's what they were saying.
Well, and I'm gonna let Yvonne tell what she saw, but I just want to chime in real quick and say, the thing that I noticed was that the tally sheet had so many things that just, how did you do that? And where did this come from? And why are there these green arrows, you know, the little green things that show
flags?
So that's what prompted all the questions in the first place. And instead of answering the questions, they came back and said, oops, we found an error. And Brent had even said there's no possible way there could be an error.
He did say that.
And they found one. So it was a comedy of errors, literally. And when you look at what's happening at the national level, and I'm not trying to imply that Brent is Trump in any sort of way, we know he's not, but the person in power, if Trump were to have the controls over how the election was run and be the one to get to say these are the results and we know that they're right and you just need to trust them, I don't think our country would be comfortable with that right now. So, you know, when you draw a parallel along lines like that, I think that's why members went for a paper ballot in the first place, is there needs to be a way to have a recount, and there was no way to do a recount. All they could do was go back and look at the programming and the coding, and they were like, oh, look at this, we did find a boo-boo. Now we have a different winner. And they weren't forthcoming about the fact that
there was going to be a runoff.
Right.
Because originally there wasn't going to be.
Right. It wasn't until Kenyatta asked, and she was the winner. She forfeited her win because she asked.
Or who knows if they would have come up with it later. You know, you can't second guess what they were going to do. But, you know, they sent us an Excel spreadsheet that had all these little green flags that you get when you mess with the numbers. The totals never matched with anything. And at first they said, well, okay, there's way more votes than there are by school because people who aren't assigned to schools don't get put in there. Okay, fine, whatever. And then they said that Kenyatta had lost by 5 votes. And then they said, well, actually, because we started saying, wait, what about this? What about this? And none of these totals ever match each other. They finally say, okay, they came up with a whole new set of totals and said, as Gay alluded, that an African-American young man who had an accent on the E in his name was the reason, a punctuation mark was the reason this had all gone to hell. Now, we've had hyphens, no hell. We've had periods for juniors and seniors, again, no hell. But all of a sudden, punctuation hell. I mean, and every step of the way, it was like that. So I'm going to cut this short, but just imagine turtles all the way down.
Now, let me ask you all this about this. This is Dear JCPS asking these questions?
No, these were candidates for office asking these questions.
Mm-hmm.
These were JCTA members who were running in this election. It was more than Kenyatta, let me just say.
Okay. Because, you know, I'm going to say this. When I was on the board, and this, oh my gosh, had to be probably about 16 years ago. And what I noticed was that, you know, I was expecting a little more, not banter, but give and take, asking questions, clarification, and it was nothing like that. Everything was kind of, it was said and we voted, and it was voted for, and we moved on. And all of the answers came from one source. You know, and personally for me, that bothered me, that there was not a really a discussion where it was give and take. Well, what about this? And what, it was just, this is what we're doing and this is why, and it was rubber stamped and it moved forward. And so that's why I was asking about who was raising these questions. Was it an outside entity, or, you know, is it the people on the board of directors? These questions should be coming from them, in my opinion, you know, where you're really scrutinizing things for transparency and for it being correct and fair.
Absolutely.
I really felt like we were never supported when we asked questions anyhow. I mean, they provided us with explanations, but other than that, I felt like based on some of the language that was taken on the outside on members only pages, it sounded as if people had a negative opinion of the fact that we asked questions.
I don't know if you can see my screen. I can explain what you're looking at if you like. In the left-hand column was a reenactment, if you will, of the spreadsheet screenshot. By the way, if they'd have given us the real spreadsheet, we could have figured out what those little green flags were. But what they sent us was what they sent the candidates was a screenshot of the Excel page that had the tallies on it. And in the left-hand column, you can see what it looks like. It showed Kenyatta having 120 and Natalie having 125. So Natalie winning by 5 votes. Lydia, who was the incumbent, had the least number of votes of the 4 candidates. And Sarah Butrin had 113. And then there were 56 abstentions, which we thought was strange because this was the only reason teachers would have gone to this link, was to vote in this election. So if they took the time to seek it out and find the link and go to the page only to not vote, either something wasn't being counted.
There was no other election on the ballot. It was just this.
And it was not an easy ballot to find. So if you were seeking it out, you should have gone there for a reason. And so that's why 56 abstentions out of 500 votes, 10% of the people went there and didn't pick a single button and then left, or chose abstain. I don't know if you can choose abstain or if you just leave and it counts. But that's what it tallied, was 56. So that was one of the questions that they were asking, is how did that many people abstain? Second question they were asking is, who's that guy at the top there with a one vote but no name? Then there were, Yvonne managed to get 3 write-ins, but she was actively campaigning, if you remember. There was a petition to get her as to get Brent to name her as one of the 10 that he appoints before this election took place. And just for everybody's information, the SK has 12 members. 10 are nominated by Brent and then voted on by the committee that he nominated. So he doesn't quote unquote appoint them. So when we say he appoints them, we get corrected. He nominates them, and then the people who he previously nominated bless his list, basically. And so there are 10 that are put there that way. And then there are 2 at-large positions every other year. And so what Kenyatta was running for was the at-large position that happened to be coming open this year. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second too. But Peter Miller somehow got 33 write-in votes, which we thought was really bizarre because nobody had heard him campaigning. So we started questioning the programming and some other things, and that's when the inquiry went back. And then another thing that was unusual was the site had, oh, Kenyatta, you need to say anything else before your phone dies?
I'm gonna go put it on the charger in the car, and then I'll try and come back and see what's going on. Nothing that I know of right now, though.
Okay. Well, one of the things that the candidates also noticed was that the school-by-school count was different than the total. So then there were they started asking questions about, why don't these numbers match? And so they were getting answers to that, but then they went and changed the page so they could no longer watch the counts. They made it so it was percentage instead of numbers. So
And that was a comedy of errors too, because Norton Elementary had a 200% turnout. I mean, everything along the way was like, really?
And then when we looked at past elections, given the same percentage, schools that didn't exist in those past elections had people who voted on their tally.
And they said,
Grace
well,
James
you know, they
Academy
were at
had
different
voted
schools
and
then
votes in
and they're counted.
2012.
So in other words, this tally is meaningless. Okay. Glad we're doing this.
Right, and what we really wanted, and then by the way, down this column, every one of these boxes had a little green triangle in the corner, which means there's an error in the formula or something. And I'd like to point out that when you normally create an Excel file, you sort it by something, and it does appear that it was sorted. If you look to the right-hand column, the sort order actually matches the end results, as if Kenyatta, other than this weird one at the top, Kenyatta had 135, Natalie had 132. So the sort order didn't even change. This is what they gave us both times, only Deontay was added and the sort order didn't change. So it makes you think that someone might have manipulated the numbers after they created this sort order. So it doesn't look like quality work product in my line of business. I would not be able to provide something like this to my client. So that's why it's troubling to me. But this second column does give what they came back with. And so now there's a new total, 518 instead of 550. Deontay Mucker was the name with the E over, the apostrophe over the E that caused everything to supposedly be out of whack. But all the ones stayed the same, ones and threes stayed the same. Only the main candidates were affected by this errant E, wacky character as Brent called it. So just lots of things to cause question. And as I mentioned, this is the leadership that's currently in power is the one pulling all the levers. And that's, as a taxpayer, that concerns me.
Can I ask about the abstaining? I get, you know, what you're saying, but how do you think it plays into what do you think that indicates? That people who voted one way, they shifted it over into an I'm not sure how that would implicate, you know.
Yeah, I mean, since the number stayed high, it didn't dramatically change. It tells me that they think that's a reliable number. But as someone who builds websites and creates forms that collect this kind of data, as a troubleshooter, I would go back and make sure that the form was capturing the data properly, because it feels to me like somewhere the submit button would allow you to not fill in a radio button or something. Like there was something broken. Like when you build a platform like this, it has to flow from A to Z, and it feels like somewhere something wasn't working. I mean, it's not my webpage, so I wouldn't know where to start.
I'm not sure I voted in this election, and I was very interested in doing so, but the link to this, I think, was sent in the same email. There was a JCTA election and there was a KEA election. And I think maybe somewhere along the way, being new to voting in the last few years, I may have missed the button, or I may have not even realized I didn't vote. And I think that's where that high number of abstain comes into concern for me.
Oh, here goes my phone again. Sorry.
Does that make sense, Tracy?
Yeah. So you're saying that let me ask you this: is it where there was an actual I abstain button, or you're thinking that it's because people did not vote?
I think
there was not an I abstain button.
So it's just maybe where somebody did something wonky and didn't know how to navigate.
Or their
10%
votes, they voted and they were calculated as abstentions.
I think there was something fishy in defense of this crazy graph we've got in front of us, and in defense of my failure to vote in this election. There's been some weird things, strange things are afoot on the computer end of things. Whether you're working with Google or whether you're working with Microsoft, it seems like every day is a new glitch that
right.
we're running into, and it could be corporate computer interference too, frankly.
Right, and it's not that everyone who got the link didn't vote, would have been, that was registered, because then the number would have been in thousands. So there had to have been something. You had to have clicked the link and then left the page without voting, is what I think an abstention would be. And so maybe they thought they were going to the KEA election and they found out they were in the wrong place and they left, and it apparently happened more often than it should have. And you know, the KEA election and the NEA election had a different start time and end time too. And this election ended at a 4 o'clock cutoff when most elections end at 5 o'clock. And it didn't follow JCTA bylaws. It apparently followed BSK bylaws that didn't exist yet. So now there are BSK bylaws when in the past there weren't. Like just the number of things that they did. They called an emergency meeting to talk about ballots and to figure out a way to not have to do paper ballots, essentially. There just have been a series of little things, all of them forgivable individually, but the compounding of them is essentially what I think is referred to as microaggressions, right? That's what this is. Lots of microaggressions that have been utilized through their election process, and they add up, and they're unacceptable. Even if they're all good intentions, it needs to be made right.
Gay, exactly what you just said. You know, them going by JCTA's or not going by JCTA bylaws, but you know, Brent McKinn's instead. That is the exact issue that a teacher friend, that a really, really good teacher friend of mine, we were both PRs together. You're aware he passed away past February. He had that major clash with Brent McKim because of a lot of what you just said, to the point to where they pushed him out. They blocked him from all the JCTA groups. Brent McKim, he told me that he cut him off on the highway, leaving the JCTA meeting one day. There was all type of things that he told me, and you know, it makes my blood boil when I hear this stuff, because I know, you know, I've seen this. And again, my teacher friend that passed away, may he rest in peace, he had shared a lot of these same sentiments that you all are speaking on. So I'm not in JCTA anymore, but you know, it is questionable. So.
And he's a politician for sure.
Exactly. That's the issue that my friend had with him. You know, we don't have room for politics in the classrooms in our, you know, things like that. So yeah.
Well, and he's an agent for politicians, if you think about it. I mean, the people who they end up endorsing, there seems to be a lot of back scratching, for lack of a better term, with some of the candidates, that Jason Nemes being a prime example, that created a lot of upset teachers when he did some things that undermined the tax increase. And the BSK went back to review whether or not his endorsement should be revoked, and they came back and said, no, he's done enough good things that we're going to overlook the bad things. And that has brought a lot of concern for a lot of members as well. So
yeah, I believe it.
Anything about BSK elections before I kind of go through the broader list? I'll say one other thing about BSK, and it's on here already. I'm planning on mentioning it. I may just get out of order a little bit. Being that Brent nominates the 10 that are elected by the committee, he has an opportunity to be intentional with his nominations and to make sure that that board is diverse and reflective of the district and its demographics, especially now, while everyone's paying attention to all of these things and realizing, you know, white people can no longer pretend they don't know. We can no longer pretend that we didn't know. And and then furthermore, when someone does bring it to our attention, then do something about it. Don't attack the people who bring it to your attention, which is what several people that I know have experienced, including myself, and several people on this call. So we all know what it's like to be in their crosshairs. But BSK is, of the 10 seats that he appoints, 9 of them are white, I believe. There's 1 black woman, and there is the incumbent that just lost this election is also black, but she lost. And so what we have here is a situation where the only people of color, except for the one that have a chance at serving on this board, have to fight it out in the 1 open seat, which is really archaic. And frankly, it's racist. I mean, Kenyatta and Natalie both should be on this board. And especially with how botched these elections are, like, I still feel like there's a campaign around that. Instead of making them duke it out for that 1 seat, just go ahead and give it to both of them. They were only 3 to 5 votes apart, and your board is not diverse. You need more diverse representation. You need them both on your board. Let's just call it what it is. Let's call it out, name it and claim it. But so that's good.
I'm sorry, I was going to say that absolutely needs to be a priority, considering the social climate that we're in, the political climate that we're in. That should be a top priority at this point.
Well, the thing that really grinds my grits, showing my age here, is that you'll point out this is wrong, and they'll say, oh yeah, here's the explanation. Well, we're going to keep doing what we were doing. Okay. And now you've got this thing, you know, and the percentage thing where we had 200% from one school, they're going to still keep going and reporting by percentage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the numbers would tell us too much.
You know, it's like, you know, your car only has 3 wheels. Yeah, okay. But you know, it's hard to get another one. Okay. So you're going to be limping along like this? I mean, we would never take that from one of our students.
Right.
We make our students redo work that looks better than this. Just saying.
Well, and I think too that you have to look at whenever they have a panel or a committee or an advisory, it's the same people.
Right.
The same people.
It's
that little circle of people or whoever. You know, it's just, I know my mother ran for school board years ago. And of course, she didn't get endorsed because she believed in merit pay. And she explained why. And I'm here to tell you, my mother would have been so awesome. I know that, not because she's my mom, but the person they went with, they ended up pushing him out because he was, you know, busy asking them to be accountable, the board, about their accounting. And you see what a mess they got into with their accounting. But JCTA did not endorse my mom. But I'm just tired of seeing the same names. I'm tired of seeing the same people. And then, you know, it's like, well, if they're not members or whatever, but you can go out and seek that out. You know, do they have to be members? Because you have to represent them, right?
Right.
Don't they have to represent them?
Maybe they're no longer members because they were frustrated with not being represented.
I can see
that.
that.
That was one of my issues.
That's one of the things we've talked about, including in our proposal to JCTA, is that we need to call, rank and file members need to call for there be a certain amount percentage that's reflective of our community, of representation from the Black community, LGBTQ community, and others. And how do we phrase that?
Well, it just kind of, I guess what you're saying, it just needs to be reflective of. And it's the same thing, even when you're thinking about what polio is talking about. Okay, so you hire 35% more Black teachers, and then what? How are you going to support them? You know, nobody has contacted me as an African-American teacher, as a Black teacher, to say, what is it that I'd like to see JCPS look like? How could I be better supported? So then you're looking at, is this really, you know, this is disingenuous. So I think and JCTA could do the same thing. If you're legally responsible for representing all teachers, whether they pay or not, then you have to be inclusive. I know my cousin, he worked for, he was a union rep at AT&T down in Georgia, and he said it. He said, they'll do it, but they'll come in and sit and won't say anything. Well, you know, let's not get into that. That's that politicking that's going on. But if you want to increase your membership, then reach out to those people who are not paid members or rank and file members and try to pull them in. You know, hey, we need somebody to sit on this committee, but it's the same people. And some of the same people who were on the board of directors when I was there are still there.
Why is that?
And that's ultimately why I left. You know, the way they handled last year's legislative session, the way, you know, I was not afforded the support that I needed. I was very well versed in restorative practices. So they had me teaching my students, my ECE students, by the way, ECE teachers, you know, we also have caseloads and all type of, you know, paperwork to keep up with and maintain. They also had me going into 3 other teachers' classrooms teaching their kids. And, you know, I'm asking the administration for support. I'm a PR at this point, so I'm thinking JCTA may give me more support, you know. I that's eventually what drove me out, you know, when it started affecting my health. So it's not that I wanted to teach since I was in 1st grade. I've always wanted to be a teacher. It wasn't that, you know, I just wanted to give up, you know, because it became too tough. It was just, I did not have the support that I needed in order to continue on. And when it started affecting my health, then that was it for me. You know, my teacher friend passed away and we were going through the same situations. That was just my wake-up call that I'm out of here.
Right.
So, and that stems from, you know, not just JCPS, not just the JBE, the Board of Education, with JCTA, when we pay union dues, we are literally, you know, depending on you to support us when we have situations like this. And when we had the big legislative session last year, when we got Bevin out, the way they handled things, you know, it was just, it was mind blowing. So that's why membership is lacking. I talked to so many teachers that said, I'm quitting or I'm not giving JCTA any more of my money.
Right.
All that, so.
I think this is a good time for me to come in and give a part of my story. Gay's giving me the thumbs up because she's heard it a million times. I am no longer a member of JCTA. For the 18-19 school year, the 19-20 school year, I was a school counselor. And I spoke up on behalf of Black students. There was actually a white teacher who was calling Black students monkeys, dummies, and little shits. And she was verbally and emotionally and psychologically abusing students. And I contacted Child Protective Services. And of course, I had to tell the principal that I contacted Child Protective Services on this teacher. And this teacher used JCTA to come after me. And what they did was, they said that I changed her work hours and work duties. They lied on a grievance. I had no authority as the school counselor to change your work hours and duties. So they brought up this whole falsified grievance against me, and they went after me. And not only that, they kept pressuring the principal to get rid of me, or else they were going to file a grievance against the principal. And so she eventually just lied and falsified some write-ups, and I was demoted. And the union rep actually told teachers at a transfer meeting that I was a horrible person and not to go to that school, and like defamed my name, all because I was standing up for Black kids. So JCTA will never get another dime from me. And I mean that.
All right, Ms. Love.
Because they are not for the most vulnerable people, which are little kids,
Right.
little Black kids
Right.
against teachers,
Right.
white teachers.
Right.
How can you, in good conscience, stand up for these people and allow them to abuse somebody's child? It just baffles me that this is the type of stuff that they're doing. And I just wanted to say that. I'm sorry. I got a little bit emotional. They would never get another dime from me.
You say never, Kim. Miss Dr. Mucker. I hate to hear you say never, because I think we are on the verge of, if we take the right action, we can, I feel like we're in a position right now to force JCTA to commit to real change moving forward. And as long as we continue to disregard Black lives, I agree with you. But I think we're in a position we can call for and change that's needed, that is going to guide a future that centers Black lives.
Well, okay. I would say if real change happened, not just with Brent McKim, but with some of the other people that have had a hand in ensuring that these murderers of kids murder in the mindset of their spirit and their psychological and emotional well-being. If all of these people are removed and replaced with people with integrity and who are really for the kids, then I will consider. But I don't see that happening anytime soon.
That's got to be our goal. And I'm going to get back to you. It's not going to happen in 30 days, that's for sure. But there's definitely a retaliatory culture that we have in place. I think it connects with unlimited terms. And I feel like I connect with Brent ideologically on the political spectrum. There's too much stuff that's going on and that needs to be addressed, and we need to make that our focus.
Yeah, and I said that was going to be the last thing, but this came to mind, and this is when I was like, now wait a minute. I had a grievance, and I was told how it was going to work was that I would file a grievance against my principal, and then we would go in front of Carolyn Meredith. This tells you how long ago this was, and she'll deny it, and then and I was like, wait a minute. She's going to deny it. Nobody is looking at has anybody ever looked at how many of these grievances are being denied? And that was the process. The process was not we'll go in front of her, she'll hear it, and she'll decide. He said she'll deny it, and then we'll have to go back. And I remember I was, and as a matter of fact, it was the deputy who passed. It was him. He was my PR. He was my, not PR, help me, UNICEF director. And I was so mad about that because I thought.
That was James Hughes, right?
James Hughley,
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. But I remember I just ate him alive on that you would tell me that she's going to deny it. Like that is the process. And that is the agreement. And so if she denied it and I let it go, then there that goes. So who's getting justice?
It's very similar to, as Black people, we have to know our rights, because if we get pulled over by the police, we have to know. That's what we teach our kids, right? I would always push that as a PR to my fellow teachers. Make sure you know the bylaws and the Constitution, the little yellow, the JCTA.
The contract book.
Yes. And, I made sure every single JCTA member and some that weren't, because they weren't, they could get a due process as well.
Right.
But not representation. But I would always make sure that teachers knew what the JCTA bylaws said, because if not, you're just left at the hands of, whatever they tell you. And a lot of times it's not right. So, yeah.
Kimberly, did I see your microphone go off? Were you going to say something? So in the chat, I'm being asked a question about KEU and what other options, I guess, might be a different way to ask this question, do teachers have? If JCTA isn't fitting the bill, is there another option? In my chat, I was responding that KEU could become another option, perhaps. If JCTA can't do this, who could? And Greg and Yvonne are both officers with KEU. Do you want to maybe explain what makes JCTA special and different than, say, a KEU?
Go ahead, Yvonne. You've got so many more words than I.
I knew you were going to throw me under this particular bus. Kentucky Educators United is a statewide organization, so it handles more things that are endemic to all classrooms, like returning to school without enough protective gear, which is actually the least effective way to control for the virus. But we've got a town hall on just that, webinar, whatever they want to call it, on just that coming up. And part of it was that we saw that teachers in other districts, teachers in other counties, teachers in other parts of the state had the very same issues we have. A legislature who wants to deprofessionalize your profession. A tendency to throw new hires under the bus at both the state and district levels through the various KEA affiliates, including JCTA and the others. Not much interest in anti-racism or social justice for our kids. That's something you give lip service to. But when the rubber meets the road, we couldn't get everything we wanted. And somehow the things they got, that never got to that. The bit with the pensions. Those of you who are PRs were at that meeting where Brent basically said, Futurama has a shtick where this ancient professor who runs this crazy company always goes, "Good news, everyone!" And it's immediately followed by terrible news. Well, that was Brent. Good news, everyone! We're putting the new hires in a hybrid campaign that gives them 10% less money.
Somebody else said that for him, though. Technically, say that he had a legislator come on and say that.
Say that for him. Thank you. He did delegate that out. But he himself said that this, not, you got to give up everything, but he did praise their new, as far as the legislature is concerned, they've already negotiated. That's how they feel. They're going to cut the benefits, which is basically cutting the pay of the new hires by 10%. And so, in 5 years, when they come to attack our pension, and they will, first of all, you should do the right thing because it's the right thing, okay? You shouldn't do it for a political expediency. But rarely, sometimes those two align. We should protect the new hires because that's what we'd want somebody to do for us. But secondly, in 5 years, when 1/3 of the people in our union we shafted, when they come after us, and they will, they're going to say, well, I don't see why you should support the old timers. They didn't support you. And what are we to say? It's 100% true. This is just a bad idea from once upon a time to the end.
I'm going to
And
add,
that's kind of the reason KEU exists, to take
Yeah.
on bad ideas like this.
we're not officially a union, but we're like,
Yeah, we're not a 501c5, which is
We're
a
the
labor union that can
bad
negotiate
brother.
contracts.
or bad cousin that's going to speak truth. But there's such the parallel. Just like Jefferson County is going to cave to say can't do anything because this Kentucky state legislature is saying we have to do it this way. So do we see JCTA bowing to the political forces of KEA, and given the political and racial dynamics of that situation, we can't continue to move forward that way. We need action that's going to address racial justice and social justice moving forward, and we can't continue to play the deal-making games. We need to make a stand, and that's what the resolution I've been talking about. Anybody JCTA that wants to help Ivana, go ahead, Kenyatta.
I'm sorry, I unmuted and my son started talking. I apologize. I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to say that, and all of this doesn't help us with recruitment. Like, how are we supposed to encourage people to come into our career, to come into this, wonderful opportunity to have an impact on the future of our world through our children, when they know that, long time has the belief been that teachers are underpaid for the work that they do, and now we're going to pillage their pensions and their benefits so that it works to the benefit of people who have no clue what it's like, the type of sacrifices we make as educators. So, I think all of these things put a further problem on us. That means that we're never going to get to smaller class sizes so that we can meet the needs of our students on the very intimate level that they need it on.
It is, and JCTA definitely has the potential to do better. Like, JCTA has done a lot of great things, in spite of everything that we've discussed. And they've helped me out in situations in the past, that I really didn't know how to navigate. But at the same time, this is, like you said, these last couple of years is what drove me out. And it does hurt recruitment, because when you don't have the teachers in the positions as PRs to even, serve their fellow teachers in the school, everybody doesn't have that passion. A lot of teachers were all overwhelmed with lesson plans and, data tracking and everything. They're losing a lot of good people. So
yeah,
I just say that, yeah. And my boyfriend,
Where we need to be intentional about our demands. I think the January 12th national initiative that includes the Kentucky Alliance has signed on to that. The Save Our Schools initiative has signed on to that, along with Boston, Chicago, Oakland, and LA teacher unions. We've got a lot of power to be heard, and now is the time to be making our feelings felt. And I think we're in a position for some collective labor action to force some hands. And
I will add that JCTA is one of the few labor organizations in the state that has a collective bargaining agreement with the district. So KEU, even if they did become a 501c5, I think it'd be a long time before they would have the same strength to negotiate. But the problem is that JCTA has all this strength and power, and it feels like it's not being leveraged and fully utilized. So that's why members are calling for changes in.
can we speak to that a little bit more?
Yes.
Because I thought, I just saw Danita, clearly the agenda from the far right is to undermine any collective worker action, and to the point where we see it as law in a number of states, including ours, to where we can't even use the word strike. I mean, we're going to endorse candidates that have voted for the right to work for less and undercut a working wage and keep people down. And we've got some stuff to work out. That there is no doubt.
Well, and then too, you look at the point that fact that the president, and not necessarily Brent in particular, but I know he's working under what, an MOA? And so how much pushback is he going to really give if it may put in jeopardy what school he bounces back to, if he were to go back into the classroom? So that's always been a question of mine, is how hard is he truly fighting for us if he might be, there may be a retaliation of saying, okay, well, how about we put you in this hellhole school?
My question along those lines, I'm sorry, Tracy, please.
No, you're fine.
My question along those lines, if we've got a blocked pension investment program, that how much is he invested in corporations that may be pushing another thing? I just think it's crazy, and I guess we're getting to Randy to be able to speak to a little bit more on pension. But to have investments and they may, for all we know, they're 100% invested in Pearson testing. So there's conflict of issues there with having a non-transparent pension investment, and we need to be looking at that as well, because that's something that can be used to force Brent's hand into decisions that aren't for the common good as well.
So Danita wrote, a 501c4 may be the next best thing because politicians do what you make them do. Well, BSK is JCTA's PAC. And so that's what we were talking about, getting people on that existing board that are going to do what the politicians need to do, make the politicians do what they need to do, will be our first goal. But yes, so we're focused on the elections because they're here, they're upon us. And then if we are not successful with our elections, then it's entirely possible that that may be a next step, a next chain of the next pathway. So, Randy, you've been kind of quiet. Do you want to chime in here about any of the things that have been said so far, or do you want me to just keep going with this agenda?
Well, does anybody have any particular questions about the pension? Because what Brent is using right now is misdirection as far as the proposal and the tier 3 employees that will be in a hybrid pension plan. By saying we have accomplished a great deal with our negotiation is frankly total bullshit. I'd be happy to discuss it if anybody has some questions, but this is misdirection, and it is frankly, in my opinion, an example of the Stockholm syndrome where JCTA is sympathizing with the abusers.
All right, on that note, I'll continue with the agenda.
I'll ask one
Go ahead,
question.
Greg.
Do you see any strategic advantage to, I noticed in looking through the numbers, there's a certain groups that have a negative effect and certain groups that have a positive effect. And is that strategically placed, in your opinion, based on teacher demographics? Or had you looked at that? Does that make sense?
Are you speaking to me? Because I had left for a few minutes there. I had to take care of some family issues.
So when I look at Brent's, what he's sent out, I guess Brent, but when I look at what's been sent out around the pension reform,
yeah,
there's certain, they break it down into certain teacher categories. I guess maybe those that haven't been hired, or how effect.
Oh, well, you know,
There's 1 to 10, teachers 10 to 20, and so
you know, that is misdirection. That's deceptive, because what is not being spoken about by Brent is the fact that other groups were not included in these negotiations. Jerry Miller, I told him early on, if you've been following Twitter at all, Jerry Miller was supposed to include me and a gay in. I'm sorry. That grid, those different categories are beside the point. If there is a 90% funded level that needs to be reached before benefits that have been cut are restored, it'll be years before that 90% funded level is reached. Currently, the TRS is funded at somewhere around 40%. It's been damaged, seriously damaged over the last 15 to 16 years. That is why they want to convert the new hires into a 401k style hybrid plan. It's cheaper, and then they have cut off the retirees into a separate block where they can claim that part is not up to 90% funding until it reaches 90%. We're going to have to cut benefits. And if we don't have the money, the payment will fall back on the localities. That is what Brent is not talking about. He's using misdirection and telling us, frankly, what you're looking at is good. It's the best we could do. In this new reality, 70% of the legislature is Republican. They have super majorities. We'll have to take their bullshit because we can't fight them. I totally disagree. I have disagreed for over 8 years. This union, it's no longer a union, it's no longer association. It's basically an extension of a certain group of people that have been in there for over 2 decades. You cannot run against them. For example, with BSK, the leadership appoints 10 of 12 positions on that particular PAC. You have a great deal of power in an incumbent president. There were term limits. That's the currency of those highly lucrative secret investments. That's why I filed a lawsuit against this organization and Carlyle, Blackstone, and Oak Ridge back in 2014, because they have proprietary contracts which allows them to suck millions, if not billions of dollars out of the pension plan. I've been trying to get the word out there. I've been trying to run against McKim in 2015. I ran in KEA elections twice against Stephanie Winkler and then against Eddie Campbell. And I got up there and made a total enemy of myself because I was speaking the truth. And that is, the teachers are getting fucked. They're getting ripped off. And this union, JCTA, is not doing a goddamn thing to stop this theft. They present this plan to us and say, oh, look at the wonderful things we've done with negotiation. Let's take a step back. We don't have to take this plan because it's cutting us off at the knees. When you put the new hires in a separate category, there is no new funding coming into the plan. It's the basic Social Security structure to fund the retirees. And if the plan is below 90%, they have that written on their description, they will cut the benefits of the retirees. We're not going to have our COLAs, cost of living adjustments, protected. We're not going to have our health care protected. So what we are buying is a pile of shit. And if the union doesn't stand up, it's not worth the money we pay to them every year. But you've got somebody that's been in there, that family has been in there for over 20 years. I was there when they pushed through the elimination of term limits. And I hope you're recording this. I hope you put this out there, because when they pushed that through, there was an understanding that Brent would be in there for 2 terms, and he kept saying, I'll go back to the classroom. I'll go back to the classroom. That hasn't happened. That was over 14 years ago. Now, I'm sure there is a reason why he's blocking transparency of those secret proprietary investments. A lot of money is passing under the table. There has to be a reason he is protecting those big New York investment firms, the private equities that I sued in 2014. A lot of money is flowing under the table. Now, why would he be protecting that secrecy?
Why would they
Why
even
did-
endorse somebody like Jason Neiman, after we fought against them last year?
Right.
Why would they? It starts with that,
It does.
you're siding with Bevin's cronies after all they did to us. And, there was an article I remember Greg sharing, and the statement that I shared was, why not simply begin to pay back the missing funding and repair the damage that was inflicted by the legislature and not us teachers? We didn't inflict that damage. And we have dependably every year, consistently, faithfully paid, one of the highest pension contribution rates in the country, 13%. Why is that falling on our backs and not theirs? So it's just, I seriously thought I had got out of this when I resigned from JCPS last year. I thought, good, I'm free from that. I had my financial advisor draft my paperwork to pull my pensions and everything. My new job pays right into the teacher TRS too.
Oh, no.
God.
Yeah,
Oh, my
so
God.
I'm stuck. Yeah.
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 So yes, Randy, I was recording, and I will be happy to make sure that gets out there.
We want you back in JCPS, Shantae. Not so fast.
So I'm going to go back to the screen. It's after 5:30, so I want to go through the rest of the agenda as quick as we can and talk about anybody that might be interested in running. I think we probably already know who's on this call that is, but we'll still talk about that at the end. BSK elections are January 11th. JCTA elections are January 27th. What we have been talking about is having a platform that the candidates that we would endorse would be supporting. And they kind of roll up under these bullets that I've put together. You guys are welcome to add to them, change them, modify them, but I've been trying to put it into a summary. One is about restoring the democratic process, including restoring term limits, which were eliminated in 2003. I think that was the year after Brent became president in 2001. He was instrumental in getting rid of term limits, which is why he's been able to stay in for 20 years. Increased transparency, not only around elections, but around everything. We just have been not seeing what's really going on behind the curtain. Reliable election results. BSK again as an example, but we have JCTA elections. How can we trust the results after what we saw with BSK? People need to pay close attention to BSK as we head into the main ones in case there's more reason for uproar before the main one. And things like everybody voting on PAC endorsements. That was what Yvonne ran on. Oh, and I should add no sewer rats, right, Yvonne? Those were your 2 campaign platforms when you were trying to get people to sign the petition to have you on BSK. No endorsements.
No Sewer Rats is a winning platform, I think.
I think so. Kenyatta, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to make mention, I don't know who all has put their name on the ballot for the general election, but for the BSK runoff as well as for the general election, they're allowing each person or nominee to have somebody on when they are counting the vote, but I'm not quite sure how that's going to look when with an electronic ballot. What does that mean for them to be able to look at the count?
Well, I guess we get to find out. You get to be the guinea pig.
I don't even know how we would even pay attention to make sure that we're not getting the wool pulled over our eyes.
Those are great questions. And why should the teachers trust after what they've seen? Good point. So that is one of the main bullets, the democratic process. The second one is fight for racial justice, lifting up marginalized communities, and that includes representation on boards and committees that reflect district makeup. And I don't mean teacher makeup, because we know teacher makeup doesn't reflect the district makeup, and that's a goal. So we don't want to settle for just what the teacher membership looks like. We want to settle for where we're headed, not where we are. And so it needs to reflect district makeup. Again, the BSK board, the 10 appointed seats, of which 9 are white. Brent could have been making a more diverse board, and he hasn't. So he needs to answer questions as to why he hasn't, or be held accountable. The botched election results also. Stop representing and protecting teachers who use the grievance process to deny their racism. Kind of what we heard from Dr. Johnson on the call. And Chris, you had asked me earlier about the Black agenda. I think that the Alliance is the ideal organization to craft the Black agenda through a community collaborative process. And there are some drafts that are floating around, but I also think that this is a task that this elected board can take on. You know, people who are in positions that have platforms and microphones and budgets and things like that really should be able to carry this across the finish line. And so that's part of what I put under the racial justice piece of the platform. And then the third piece is fighting for pension funding, and also against privatization efforts. I probably need to rewrite that so they are parallel in construction, but you know what I mean. The agenda to destroy unions is the same agenda that is bringing in charter schools and vouchers and siphoning funds away from public education and shifting those resources to punitive and harmful measures. And so really pension and everything else kind of rolls up under that broad umbrella. But don't throw in the towel due to perceived difficulty, which is what we heard from Yvonne and others. The pensions have gone from 139% funded 20 years ago to 13.4% funded. That's all the pensions, not just KRS. But that's a reason why there should be a demand for change in leadership from the most powerful labor union in the state. They've had a chance to hold these groups accountable, and instead they've left it upon members like Randy to put that on their shoulder and raise the funds to pay for lawyers and file lawsuits and do all those things.
In there too, Gay.
Pardon me?
I KEU's role largely, because we've seen KEA is not going to take a stand when we said we need to be challenging the gang bills.
Yes.
Need to challenge this state legislation that says we need armed uniformed police officers in every school building. We saw JCTA back down because KEA was in no means willing to stand up for that racial justice agenda. And that's where I see KEU playing a significant role moving forward, because somebody's got to be a voice for truth and to push through this inequity system that we have in place.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know we have racial justice as one of our main bullets, but I added take on racial justice issues in legislature under the third bullet, because I think it's worth mentioning twice. And like you said, because we know KEA and JCTA aren't going to do that. So police-free schools, where am I putting that? Under the racial?
It's certainly one of the demands of, or demands for
right.
Safe Schools initiative. And we need to bring that voice. I mean, we need to bring that debate out and light on it. And so I think January 12th be a strong day of action. I know we haven't had a chance to talk about what it looks like locally, but there's going, as Shantae dropped in the chat, there's going to be a national meeting to discuss. But we've got cities like Chicago being told they need to show up now with the start of
Oakland, California.
I mean, when we've got the vaccine on the line, you're going to force teachers back in the building like that. There is a dominant culture feel to that, and it cannot go unchallenged. Go ahead, Shantae.
The possibility that Arizona and Northern Virginia will walk too.
Gabe, if you click on the link, you can share that that page that comes up to see the 8 demands. When I had that rally a couple months ago, those same demands still stand, but they've adjusted the ones regarding the PPE and coronavirus and added in some stuff about the vaccination. So if you click on that link, you can share that. You'll see yeah, that's for tomorrow, the call that I'll be preparing. But if you go up and there's resources, and the home page will give you those 8 demands that the Black agenda and Black Lives Matter were pushing when we had the Men Safe Schools rally.
If you click on demands at the top, Gay, I think that'll take you there. There's 8 simple ones that we need voices out.
Yeah.
I've got all my controls over all my screens, so I'm having a little trouble navigating, sorry.
Good. I'm happy to see vaccines for all students. I've been worried about that.
Yeah.
Well, it's not approved for children yet.
Good point. Yes, I know it. What are they going to do about that? One of the vaccines is for people 18 and up.
Trigg County just lost another teacher to COVID.
Yeah, we've had a rash that should have been stopped before it started with regard to forcing in-person learning. And a lot of the teacher unions weren't strong enough to stand against the retaliation that was put in place against them. But we've got to recognize as collective labor folks that we have a obligation to stand for those that are being put in harm's way, and that includes Chicago teachers and many others right now, and get around an idea and action that we can take nationally, and that's what this meeting tomorrow night is about.
Were they able to get health care, like Medicare for All, kind of conceptually added to their list? Because our families need their basic needs met. And healthcare is a big piece of that.
Go ahead, Sean, if you've got a better answer than I do on that.
I know that's a long-term goal. I don't know. I don't think it's part of the January 12th Day of Action, but Shantae can correct me.
I missed the first part of the question. The question that you're responding to, Yvonne.
I was asking if we can add healthcare for our families to this list of safety and equity in communities.
There's actually at the end, at the bottom of this page, you can email the Demand Safe Schools Committee because it's a national coalition. And as of right now, they were just pushing those 8 demands. But I think if you scroll up a little bit, yeah, there's their email, I believe is.
I think I have emailed before.
There's an email on this page somewhere at the very, very bottom of one of the pages. And you can actually send in that suggestion or request. But the immediate demands, that they were pushing for right now,
Yeah, they
And
have.
that, I think the healthcare comes from, the funding and the funding demands.
All right.
When it says economic support for states and cities, I'm not sure if that's included in that or not. And unemployment benefits, so.
Yeah, I think most of the health equity demands went to address that we're in, but it's certainly an issue nationally that that the unions and community groups we see signed on to this are interested in promoting moving forward.
Okay.
And I think that healthcare is important when we talk about safe schools, because if we push our students and our teachers back into school buildings and they continue to come and test positive with COVID, who's going to cover all of these doctor's visits, medications, ventilators, intubation, and all of these other things that can come as a direct result of going back before this virus is under control?
And those can always be pushed as local demands, in addition to those national demands, safe schools demands. You can always add, your own local demands. So that definitely, should be prioritized.
Some of that needs to happen at the federal level, like Medicare for all needs to be a national push. But I had expressed it earlier to Jackson Potter, and I don't know that it ever made it in his ear.
I think what we're getting ready to see is some strikes in some major cities that are, for whatever reason, demanding teachers go back before we even have a chance to administer the vaccine. And it's a chance to, Eddie Davis caught me on the way out of the media event yesterday and said, never miss an opportunity to take action in the middle of a catastrophe. And that is a real catastrophe. You're going to try to force however many thousand Chicago teachers back into the schoolrooms when there's a vaccine out there that's going to help keep them safe. And it is a dominant culture, and it needs to be addressed, and we have an opportunity to do it from a labor side collectively, and we need to get smart about it.
Absolutely. So
I really think we need to be careful about trying to lean too much on this vaccination. There's a reason why every time they publicize someone getting the vaccination, they put a black face on there first, getting the vaccination, trying to press that Black people need to have faith in the healthcare system, and that we're going to get fair treatment when doctors sit on their deathbeds in hospitals not far from us, and they can't even get good care, and we're supposed to have faith and trust. I think it's irresponsible for them to keep on making it seem as if we are the ones that are irrational.
Agreed. So it's 10 minutes till 6. We've kept everybody on here longer than I had really planned, so I apologize for that. I see we've lost Yvonne and Chris. So I want to just go through the last of the agenda, if that's okay, and we can pick up on this later, or after. Anyone who's actually interested in running can still stick around and let's talk about strategy, or pick another day or time to do it, because Wednesday is the filing deadline, so we know that that's upon us. But I talked about the bullet points for the platform. If anyone has anything else to add to that, you can let me know at any time. It doesn't have to be right now. Under endorsements and support, I created a category for that because and Tia's not on the call today, but these are things that I'm conveying that she and I have discussed. And as a coalition, we can endorse and support people who are running for JCTA, just like an outside PAC would endorse and support anybody who's running for any office. We can use our muscle and our voices. So one of the things that I was hoping we could maybe do today is talk a little bit about what that looks like for candidates that would be running for these positions to try and help bring change in JCTA. And one piece of advice that we have gotten and really been trying to work around, continue to make a priority, I should say, is building consensus and continuing to move forward once we've got buy-in from people that are impacted and buy-in from people that are informed and on these calls on a regular basis. If it comes down to it, we'll vote, and if we don't have majority, I mean, if we don't have, oh, here's our manual student coming in. If it comes down to it, we'll vote and go with majority vote, and we have some bylaws that we put in place when we did the Yes for JCPS tax vote. We have a decision-making council already in place. We have protocols as to how those, there's still, it's a 19-member panel. We have 17 members so far, so we have room to add 2 more. We agreed to a policy that we would not, that people would be added in pairs so that it always was an odd number, and that it would not be, we would not add a white person without also a person of color, so that it would never become lopsided. And so those are some of the protocols that we had in place. If people are fine with that, because we've already kind of got it in place, then that's what I would like to suggest that we keep using. If we want to make improvements to it, certainly let's investigate that. Maybe even between now and the next meeting, we could even have a bylaws committee that works on getting these written up in a way that everybody can sign off on, because we do need to make sure that we have people that are in decision-making positions that are responsible for being at all the meetings and being informed and staying up to date. And when we run things democratically through consensus, new people come on the calls all the time, and you can't, like, we couldn't just take a vote today and the 8 of us that are on the call, we're the official, you know, because we happen to be in the right place at the right time, this is what we're going to do, because it would create a lack of trust. It would create distrust. So there needs to be something that, as a greater body, we've agreed that these are how we move. This is how we move. And there's ways to challenge it if people are not comfortable with it, etc. But Liv is one of our students. She's on the decision-making council, and she just entered the room. So I'm going to pause and ask her to just introduce herself. Hey, Liv.
One more thing, Gay.
Yes.
There absolutely has to be immediate organizing before this legislative session.
Right.
I mean, this is a Republican-backed, veto-proof legislature. So it's not the same as what we've done in previous years. So, I mean, I don't know where to even start with that, but it needs to be, you know, it's vital that the organizing happens immediately and be prepared for, you know, anything. So, yeah.
I don't disagree. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
The legislature is counting on our passivity during this short session. That's why they're pushing some of these very radical plans to decimate the pension, to, you know, institute charters and to bring in vouchers and these sorts of things. They're counting on us not showing up because we're COVID homebound. I don't know if Kentucky 120 has been out there. I haven't seen anything from them in the last few days. They were very numerous back in 2018 when we descended upon Frankfort. Frankly, I think social distancing, school buses, whatever, personal cars, if we don't show up in person, there's no reason to take us seriously. And that's why there's this big chasm. The union is not doing its job. It should be out front organizing this. As Shantae says, we need to organize. We need to have thousands of people down there. Otherwise, these super majorities of bullies, is what they basically are, won't back down. But if they see a couple of tens of thousands of teachers who are threatening to say, you know, you want to fire 30,000 teachers for a sick out in the middle of a COVID, please go ahead. We'll call your hand.
Right.
But if there's not that kind of courage, they'll just push through all of this crap that they have on their agenda. And I'm just really unhappy that JCTA, which is the largest teachers union in the state, has been kidnapped by milquetoast leaders. We're paying an awful lot of money We're losing a lot of money in that pension, billions. And it's like people's eyes glaze over. They can't grasp it. It's 13% of everyone's paycheck. And we can't get a couple of thousand people to go down to Frankfurt and raise some hell. Gee, many Christmas. What is it with this? You know, and there's no leadership saying, come on, we're going to rally in Frankfurt. Get a personal car, bring your face masks, we'll social distance, bring some signs, get a bullhorn so you don't have to be in a crowd shouting. You got your own, you can get a bullhorn. God, it's not that complicated. But we haven't had any leadership for a good 20 years. And look at the situation we're in.
Right.
We're losing people right and left. They don't want to go back into the classroom. I mean, it's a sad state. And the Republicans in the legislature are counting on that. They know we're weak because we think we're weak.
And that's how they tricked us at the beginning of the pandemic. There were some things that slipped right under our noses at the beginning of the pandemic because teachers were so overwhelmed with NCI, which some of them still are. I've heard horror stories from some of my teacher friends. And, you know, it's concerning because it's like, you know, that takes away from the momentum that we need to hold in order for, you know, them to actually make their voices heard at the Capitol and to let, you know, the legislator know that we are still watching y'all. You know, we're not going to let this stop us, you know. So that's why I said there needs to be major organizing. I don't know. I have no idea how that's going to happen. But it needs to happen and immediately.
I mean, when we have organized, not only have they not led, they've attacked us. And so, you know, there's that too. And I think calling attention to it by challenging their leadership through the elections may be a better strategy right now because that's what's on our plate. And even though it is a 30-day session, it's going to be an interesting one because the first thing they're going to do is try to strip the governor of his powers and emergency powers. And I can't imagine that going over well, first of all. And so maybe there will be some pushback and some resistance that will give us time to consolidate our efforts while there's a break too, because they do go on a nice long break after 5 days. So I think the immediate threat is the election because it's on the calendar and there's nothing we can do about it. And yes, General Assembly is too, but we're kind of forced to pick our battles and make them be defensive. I think put them on the defensive and show how they've been. By doing the work, it shows how they're not. If that makes sense. And then we can mobilize teachers because the 8 of us, 10 of us can't do it by ourselves, especially if we're going to be attacked by more people than us. So, I don't know what the answer is. I hear you, and you're not wrong. Liv, I see you wrote in the chat. Do you want to say hello?
Hello, everybody. I hope everybody's having a good Monday, and I absolutely agree. I think that we should definitely work on starting some sort of movement, or at least something. I think as far as going to the Capitol, that's definitely safe to do so in masks. And I think if we could figure out how to start getting more interest, or at least making people more aware of what's going on, would be a really big step in the right direction. Also, hi, I'm a senior at Manual, and I'm the outreach editor of Manual Red Eye. And I think that's something that I'm definitely going to bring up when we meet tomorrow, because we focus on a lot of stuff like this. And I think everybody on staff would be really, really interested on working and helping us to make this happen.
And you know, in other states, students have led some of the sick outs and some of the marches and some of the actions. And so that is another possibility, is to see if students would be interested in taking on some of the leadership. And of course, we would be here to mentor you and support you if you decided to do so. So, any thoughts on bylaws and consensus and voting on endorsements using the decision-making council process that was established? Liv and Greg and Danita and myself and Yvonne and Tia, no, not Tia, Tyra, are some of the individuals that are on that decision-making council, and there is room for more. So if this interests somebody who is not currently on it, just raise your hand and we'll bring it before the committee. We're gonna try to be as democratic and consensus building as we can, but we need a formal process so that we can build trust in the community as well. And then another suggestion was to host a forum for the candidates, in particular president and VP candidates. We know that Brent will be running. We also know that we're hoping that there will be someone challenging him for president. We also know that Kumar is planning to run for VP, as is Tammy Berlin. So as a committee, we would endorse the candidate that aligned with these platform statements that we highlighted, and anything else that we as a group decide that needs to be included as well. And anything I missed? Anything else you guys want to add to that?
Is the deputy director position going to be open? Is that what, are they going to elect that? What's going to happen to that position?
I think you may be referring to the executive director position, like the one that Deanna Flaherty holds, or are you talking about something else that I'm not?
I'm talking about the one that James held. He was deputy director, wasn't he?
I think James is on staff or was on staff as a UniServe director, and he may have had a special UniServe director title. But those are employees that the union
just kind of appoints themselves.
Yeah, corporate actually hires people to serve in that role.
Okay.
Randy, I saw your hat on your head and I thought it was hair. I thought you were a woman on our call, actually. I was like, who's this woman that just joined us? If anyone is interested in sticking around briefly to talk about the elections, please do. I know it's late though, so if we want to schedule this for another time, we can do that as well. I'm going to stop. If this is the end of our call, I'm going to stop recording. And then we can speak frankly about the elections if there's any